The crash in the forest, the sky was dark, covered in thick clouds. Cold wind blew through the tall trees. Deep in the forest, everything was silent. But then, a strange light flashed across the sky. It looked like a shooting star, but it was too close too fast. Then came the sound, a loud boom. The ground shook slightly, and birds flew out of the trees, screaming. Ethan, a man in his early 30s, lived alone in a small wooden cabin at the edge of the forest. He was used to silence. He liked it. But that night, something didn't feel right. The sound of the crash still echoed in his ears. He stepped outside with a flashlight, his boots crunching the leaves. A faint blue glow was coming from deep inside the woods. He hesitated. Maybe it was just space junk or some kind of military test. But curiosity won. He grabbed his coat and a small backpack, then walked into the trees, following the light dot as he got closer. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Trees were broken, and the ground was black. He pushed past some bushes and stopped. In the middle of a large crater, half buried in the soil, was a small capsule. It was about the size of a bathtub. Smoke rose from its cracked surface. Strange markings glowed faintly on the side. Ethan looked around. No one else. No sounds. Just the wind. He stepped closer. The capsule's door was broken open. Inside, something moved. His heart raced. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small pocket knife. Not much, but better than nothing. Then he peeked inside. There, curled up in the center, was a child. A small girl. But she didn't look human. Her skin was a soft pale blue, almost glowing. Her hair was silver and floated slightly, as if touched by static. Her eyes were large, glowing violet, even though they were half shut. She wore a strange suit, torn and burnt. Her tiny hands were shaking. She looked up at him. Weak, afraid. She tried to speak but only coughed. Then she whispered something in a strange language, soft like a breath, and fainted. Ethan just stood there. Was she dangerous? Should he call someone? But there was no one to call. No one would believe him. And she looked fragile, like she would die if left alone for even one more hour. He slowly reached in and picked her up. She was light. Too light, like bones wrapped in air. Her skin was warm, but not like human warmth, more like touching a heat lamp. His fingers tingled. Without thinking too much, he wrapped her in his coat and started walking back toward his cabin. Every now and then, she whimpered softly in her sleep. She clutched his shirt like a scared child. Her alien features should have made him afraid. But instead, he felt something strange, a pull in his chest. Like a promise. Back at the cabin, he placed her gently on the bed and lit the fireplace. She stirred, but didn't wake. Her breathing was uneven, and her skin pulsed faintly under the light. He took out a blanket and wrapped her carefully. Then he sat beside her and stared. What was she? Where did she come from? Was she alone? Were others coming? He glanced out the window. The woods were silent again. But something told him the silence wouldn't last. He tried to check the capsule later that night, but when he returned to the crater, the entire structure had already started breaking apart. The metal turned to dust as he touched it. All that remained was a small cube, about the size of his fist, still glowing softly. He took it, not knowing why. Back inside the cabin, he placed the cube on the table. Then he looked at the girl again. She was sleeping peacefully now, but her body was glowing a little more. Her fingers twitched. Her lips moved like she was dreaming. Ethan sighed and sat on the floor. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but something had already changed. This wasn't just a crashed pot in the woods. This was the beginning of something far bigger. And he was now a part of it. The fire was still burning in the cabin fireplace when Ethan woke up. He had fallen asleep sitting on the wooden floor, his back against the wall. The blanket had slipped off his shoulders, and his neck ached. But something else pulled him from sleep. The girl was gone. The bed was empty. He stood up fast, heart thudding. "Nova?" he whispered. though he had only given her that name hours ago. A soft noise came from behind the kitchen table. Ethan moved slowly and peeked. There she was, crouched like a frightened animal, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the dim light. Her wide violet eyes stared at him, half scared, half curious. The blanket still clung to her shoulders. He knelt on the floor at a distance and spoke softly. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." She didn't answer, but her head tilted slightly, watching his mouth move. Ethan pointed at himself. "Ethan." Then he pointed at her. "Nova." She blinked. Then again, and slowly, very slowly. She touched her chest. "No. Va?" He smiled. "Yeah, Nova." It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next few hours, Ethan tried everything: water, food, warmth. She refused anything he offered at first. But when he opened a small jar of honey, she leaned forward. Her eyes fixed on the golden color like it was a treasure. He dipped a spoon and held it out. She sniffed it. Then, carefully, she touched the spoon to her lips. A second later, her entire body shivered. She let out a soft sound, like a purr and gasp mixed together. Then she grabbed the spoon and licked it clean. Ethan laughed softly. "Guess we found something you like." Still, she didn't talk. She didn't walk. She only copied small things: his head tilts, his hand gestures. She moved strangely too, like gravity didn't fully affect her. She floated a bit when she turned or stood. But the most shocking part came at night. Ethan had just placed more wood on the fire when the room flickered, not from the flames, but from her. Nova stood in front of the mirror, touching her forehead. A small line of light formed there, a faint triangle with moving patterns inside. Her skin lit up along her arms and neck, and suddenly, the broken translator cube on the table began to hum. Ethan froze. The cube floated upward, spinning slowly. Then it spoke, not in her voice, but in a soft mechanical one. "System rebooting. Language adaptation 20% complete." Nova looked at Ethan with deep, glowing eyes. Her mouth didn't move, but the cube did. No home. Lost." Ethan's heart sank. "You're trying to talk?" Nova nodded. The cube spoke again, broken but clear. "They chased, killed, escape pod. Too late. Pain." Her small hands curled into fists, and she shook. Ethan stepped closer, unsure, but she didn't move away. He gently touched her shoulder. She didn't flinch this time. "Nova, you're safe here. No one's going to hurt you, I promise." She looked up. A tear floated from her cheek, like it didn't know how gravity worked for her kind. She pointed to her chest and then to him. "Safe, you." That moment hit Ethan hard. Not just because of what she said, but because of what he felt. She wasn't just some alien child. She was someone broken, scared, alone. And somehow she trusted him. Suddenly, the translator cube flickered again. "Warning. Signal pulse detected. Hostiles tracking. 3 solar rotations away." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Nova whispered one word softly. This time, her real voice said it. "Hunters." That night, Ethan stayed up, cleaning his old weapons, checking the security cameras outside, reinforcing the cabin doors. He didn't know who the hunters were, but if they were following her, they'd come here. And he wasn't going to let anyone take her. She slept on the couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, clutching the translator cube like a stuffed toy. Her face was peaceful now, but Ethan saw the pain hiding beneath her small frame. He looked out the window at the dark forest. Who were these hunters? Why were they chasing a child? And why did he feel like this was only the beginning? The morning was cold and quiet. Snow had started to fall outside Ethan's cabin. The white flakes touched the window like ghostly fingers. Inside, the fire crackled, but Ethan couldn't relax. He kept glancing at Nova. She sat on the floor near the fire, staring into it without blinking. She hadn't spoken again since last night's warning. Hunters. Coming. Ethan had questions, so many questions, but he didn't want to scare her. Still, something in his gut told him time was running out. He sat beside her on the wooden floor, close but not too close. "Nova," he said softly, "can you tell me what happened?" She didn't look at him. Her silver hair shimmered in the firelight. The translator cube was in her lap. She gently placed her hand on it. It flickered once. Then again. Suddenly, the cabin grew darker, not because of the fire, but because the room changed. The cube projected a hologram in the air. Ethan gasped. Around them, floating in the room, were moving images, silent, ghostly memories. He saw a city in the clouds, towers made of crystal, flying ships, a sky-colored purple with 3 suns glowing above. Then fire. Explosions. Ships breaking apart. People running. No, aliens. Some looked like Nova, others more reptilian or insect-like. And then the screams. The cube began playing sound now. High-pitched cries, sirens, alarms. A deep voice, cold and cruel. Eliminate the line. The weapon must not survive. Ethan's heart tightened. The image changed. Nova was in a small room, her eyes wide with fear. Older aliens argued nearby, shoving her into a capsule. One of them kissed her forehead. The door closed. The room exploded. The capsule launched through space. And then silence. The projection faded. Nova was trembling now. Tears streamed down her cheeks, glowing softly. She didn't make a sound, but her body shook like she was cold inside her soul. Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. Finally, she turned to him. Her voice was quiet. "They kill my mother, my people. I run. They chase. No stop." Ethan reached out slowly and held her hand. She didn't pull away. "You're safe here," he said. "They won't hurt you, not again." But Nova's eyes narrowed, not in fear but in focus. She looked toward the window. Snow continued falling outside, peaceful and slow, but Nova shook her head. "They close. I feel them." Ethan stood up, walked to the window, and stared into the forest. It looked empty, still, but now he wasn't sure. Feel them? How? He asked. Nova stood too. Her feet didn't even make a sound on the wood. She walked to the door and placed her hand against it. The cube translated, "My blood, made from old stars. We feel dark thoughts, hate, killing. It screams to me." Ethan stared at her. "You're not just some child, are you?" She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. Her lips moved, slowly forming each word. "I am last, of royal mind, of weapon kind. But I want to be child again." That broke something inside Ethan. He walked to the table, opened a drawer, and took out a small book of old drawings. He flipped to a page and showed it to her. It was a drawing of a child on a swing. "My sister drew this," he said. "She died a long time ago. I promised myself I'd never be responsible for another kid's pain." He looked at Nova. "But here you are. And I'm not going to break that promise again." Nova reached out, touched the picture, and said softly, "Swing?" He smiled. "Yeah, I'll build you one after we deal with these hunters." Suddenly, a loud beep came from the cube. Signal intercepted. One hunter ship. Entered atmosphere. Ethan grabbed his jacket. That was fast. Nova's hand gripped his arm tightly. "Run?" "No," Ethan said, staring at the distant trees. "Now dark with moving shadows, we fight." The wind howled outside as heavy snow began to fall. The once quiet forest was now alive with a strange tension. Ethan felt it in his bones. Something had entered their world, something dark. Nova stood near the window, her glowing eyes fixed on the trees. She wasn't blinking. Ethan moved quickly around the cabin, locking the doors, checking the weapons. He wasn't a soldier, but years of living off-grid had made him ready for anything. His old rifle was loaded. The traps near the forest edge had been rearmed hours ago. But still, Fear sat in his chest like a heavy stone. He turned to Nova. "How close are they?" She didn't answer with words. She simply lifted her hand, and the translator cube floated into the air. One hunter. Near. Others, far behind. This one, fast, strong. Ethan looked out the window again. The trees stood tall and frozen, unmoving. But he knew something was out there. Something not human. He motioned for Nova to go to the trapdoor in the floor. It led to a small hidden space beneath the cabin. Barely enough for a child. "Go down there. Don't make a sound," Nova shook her head. "You fight, I help. You're a kid," Ethan said firmly. "I protect you." Nova stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter now. "No, I protect you." Before Ethan could argue, the cabin lights flickered. Then they all went out, total darkness. Ethan's breath caught. He turned on a small flashlight, its weak beam barely cutting through the dark. Nova's body glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the wooden walls. A low sound rumbled through the forest. Not thunder. Not wind. A growl. Then came the sound of footsteps. Not fast. Not loud, but heavy. Slow. Deliberate. Ethan raised his rifle and aimed toward the front door. The handle began to shake just a little. Not like someone trying to break. More like testing it. The door creaked. Then boom. Something slammed into it. Hard. The wood cracked. Hinges bent. Snow blew in from the broken edges. Ethan fired. The shot echoed like a thunderclap. He didn't know if he hit anything, but something growled again, angrier now. The door exploded inward, pieces flying everywhere. A dark figure stood in the entrance. It was tall, 7 feet at least. Its armor was black and jagged, like it had been forged in fire. Its face was hidden behind a helmet shaped like a skull. Green lights blinked across its chest. Its arms were long, ending in sharp claws. The air around it shimmered with heat. Ethan fired again. The creature moved fast, unnaturally fast. The bullet bounced off its armor. It raised a glowing weapon, but before it could fire, something else happened. Nova screamed, not loud but sharp. High-pitched. Not from fear, but from power. The sound hit the hunter like a wave. Its helmet sparked. It stumbled back, grabbing its head. The translator cube floated up and lit the whole cabin in a brilliant blue light. Nova stepped forward. Her small hand lifted, and the hunter flew back out the door like he'd been hit by a truck. Ethan stared, frozen. Nova's eyes were bright white now, her feet floating a few inches off the ground. The room shook. The hunter got up outside, roaring. Its armor now flickered with damage. It charged again. Ethan yelled, "Nova, get back." But she didn't move. She whispered something in her own language. The cube translated, "You hurt. My family." A sudden beam of energy burst from her hands, hitting the hunter's chest. Its armor cracked. It screamed a sound like metal grinding in pain. Then it turned and ran, disappearing into the forest like smoke. The light vanished. Nova collapsed to the floor. Ethan rushed to her. "Nova, hey, are you okay?" She opened her eyes slowly, tired, but not hurt. Ethan held her close. "You saved us." She smiled weakly. "I'm not just child, I am fire." Ethan looked out into the snow-covered forest. The hunter was gone, but not far. And if one had come, more would follow. He stood up and checked his gear again. His hands were shaking. "She's not a normal child," he whispered to himself. "She's something powerful." He didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. This fight had only just begun. Snow covered everything, trees, rocks, even the trail that Ethan once used for hunting. Now he wasn't hunting, he was running. Nova walked beside him, quiet but alert. Her bare feet didn't seem to mind the cold. Her silver hair swayed in the wind, and her eyes kept scanning the trees. Behind them, far beyond the cabin, smoke rose in the sky. Ethan had set fire to it before leaving. It would hide their tracks, or so he hoped, but he knew the hunter would return. And next time, it wouldn't come alone. The mountain trail was steep and frozen. Ethan's breath came out in white clouds. His legs ached. The backpack was heavy with supplies, water, food, tools, and the glowing cube, which now rested in Nova's hands. She hadn't spoken much since the fight. She walked with a strange calm, like she wasn't a child anymore. Ethan tried to break the silence. "Are you okay?" Nova looked up. Body cold, but heart warm. He gave her a tired smile. "We'll rest soon. There's a cave ahead. I used it once during a storm." Nova nodded but then stopped. Her hand reached out, pointing toward the sky. Ethan followed her gaze. 3 tiny lights moved silently across the clouds like stars with purpose. "Ships. They're tracking us?" he asked. She didn't need to answer. They kept walking. The wind picked up. Trees thinned out. The forest gave way to rocks and cliffs. An hour passed. Then finally, the cave appeared, a dark crack in the side of a hill. Ethan led the way inside, lighting a small lantern. The space was dry, hidden and deep enough to protect them. As soon as they sat, Nova placed the cube between them. It flickered, then spoke in its soft voice. "Signal blocked. Safe for now." Ethan unzipped his jacket and handed Nova a thermal blanket. She wrapped herself in it, still watching him with calm eyes. He asked, "Why didn't you destroy that hunter?" Nova looked down. Her voice was slow, thoughtful. "I could. But then, I become like them." Ethan was silent. He respected that answer more than he expected. After a while, Nova closed her eyes. Her hands rested on the glowing cube. Then something strange happened. The light from the cube spread across the cave walls, drawing moving images again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just memory. It was the future. Ethan saw cities burning, a planet cracking apart, alien machines with sharp limbs flying through dark skies. And then he saw himself, older, worn, standing on a platform. Nova beside him, taller, glowing, powerful. Armies stood behind her. The crowd roared her name. She raised her hand and peace flags rose across the battlefield. Ethan blinked. "What was that?" Nova whispered. Maybe future." "Not sure." He looked at her amazed. "You saw that too?" She nodded. "My mind sees many lines. Some break, some lead to light." He leaned back against the wall. "So, what happens next?" She answered simply. "We climb." The next morning, they left the cave before sunrise. The trail became narrow, snow falling faster. Slippery rocks, frozen edges, long drops below. But Nova moved with balance, like she knew every step before it came. Halfway up the mountain path, Ethan spotted something. Tracks. Not animal. Not human. 3 clawed footprints. Deep, heavy, fresh. He turned to Nova. "They're ahead of us now." She didn't panic. "We go around. I guide." They slipped off the trail, moving through snow-covered trees. Hours passed. Then suddenly movement. A blur of black metal shot past the trees. One of the hunters. It didn't see them. Ethan ducked. Nova raised her hand and whispered something. The air around them shimmered. The hunter paused, looking around, but didn't see them. Camouflage. Psychic. When it was gone, Ethan let out a breath. "You hit us?" Nova smiled softly. "I learn fast." That night, they camped under a rocky ledge. Ethan boiled water using a small stove. Nova sat beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. She whispered, "Why, you help me? I not yours." He looked at her for a long moment. "Because someone has to," he said. "And maybe I needed saving too." She didn't answer, but her hand found his, small and warm. The stars above the mountain twinkled, and the next part of their journey had already begun. Asterisk, the snow had stopped falling. For the first time in days, sunlight broke through the clouds above the mountains, shining golden rays over the icy trail. Ethan and Nova stood on a cliff edge, staring down at a hidden valley below green trees, steam rising from underground springs, and in the center, a strange structure shaped like a fallen star. Nova whispered, "This place. I remember." Ethan frowned. "You've been here before?" She nodded slowly. "Before the fall. Before the hunters." The translator cube in her hands glowed warmer than usual. A soft voice echoed from it. "Safe zone. Detected. Life forms friendly." Enfen didn't believe it right away. After what they'd seen, trust was hard. But Nova walked ahead with quiet confidence, her steps light as snowflakes. By the time they reached the valley floor, Ethan saw that the fallen star was actually a base camouflaged with rock and vines, its walls humming with hidden energy. The door opened silently as they approached. Inside, a soft voice welcomed them. "Please step forward, heir of the lost lineage." Ethan froze. "What did it just say?" Nova looked up at him. "It knows me." As they entered, soft blue lights followed them down the hall. The air was warm. The floors were smooth metal, but not cold. It didn't feel like a prison. It felt like home. At the end of the corridor stood a tall figure, slim, cloaked in deep purple robes with glowing white eyes and gray skin covered in fine lines. He was not human. "Welcome, child of starlight," the alien said in a calm voice. "And welcome, guardian of the air." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The alien bowed his head slightly. "I am Kale, last of the royal mind guides. I served your father, Nova, and your mother before their world was burned." Nova's face changed. Her lips parted in surprise. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Kale. I remember your voice in dream." Kale nodded. "We are connected through the mind stream." "You were never alone." Ethan stepped forward. "You're saying she's a princess?" Kale's eyes turned toward him. "More than that. She is the key. Not just royal by blood, but chosen by the source flame, the last of the soul-born line." Ethan looked at Nova, tiny, glowing, wrapped in his old blanket. "She's a child." Kale's voice turned grave. "She was meant to grow into power slowly, but the enemy forced it open too soon. Now her mind holds galaxies, but her heart is still small." Nova's eyes shimmered with tears. "Why did they kill my family?" Kale knelt in front of her. "Because they feared your light. You were born with connection to the source flame, a power that cannot be cloned, stolen, or controlled." Ethan asked, "What do they want now? Just her?" Kale stood. "They want silence. If Nova survives, others will rise. Hope will return. The enemy thrives in fear, and fear dies when she lives." Ethan stepped back, stunned. He had just wanted to help a lost kid in the woods. Now he was part of something that sounded bigger than history. Kale led them deeper into the sanctuary. There, a pool of glowing liquid pulsed like a heartbeat. Nova touched it, and her entire body lit up. Symbols appeared across her arms like stars moving in slow patterns. "She's unlocking herself," Kale said softly. "Not all at once, just enough to survive what comes." Ethan asked, "And what does come next?" Kale looked toward the ceiling. A distant rumble echoed through the walls. War. Suddenly, alarms blared through the base. Red lights flashed. Kale placed his hand on the wall. "One hunter ship has broken the valley seal. You must leave now." Ethan grabbed his gear. "No more running." "I'm not leaving her side." Kale handed him a weapon unlike anything he had ever seen. "Then protect her, not because she is royal, but because she is still a child." Nova stepped beside Ethan and took his hand. Her voice was calm. "I am light, and I choose to shine." The sky above the valley had turned red dot not from sunset, but from fire. The hunter ship broke through the clouds like a spear, engines screaming. The mountain wind howled as black steel descended, claws unfolding, lights flashing like lightning. Ethan stood in front of the sanctuary's main entrance, holding the alien weapon Cale had given him. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were steady. Nova stood beside him. She wasn't floating, not glowing too brightly, not speaking like a queen. She was calm, a child. But ready. Cale's voice echoed from behind them. They're coming for her. They will kill anyone in the way. Once the source flame is gone, darkness wins. Ethan didn't reply. He didn't need to. His heart had made the choice days ago, back in the forest. They came. Black armored figures dropped from the sky like shadows. 3 hunters, each taller than a man, covered in jagged armor with glowing red eyes, weapons drawn. Their footsteps cracked the stone. The leader stepped forward. His voice was like breaking metal. "Give us the girl." Nova gripped Ethan's hand. He said one word. "No." The hunters moved fast. The first one lunged forward. Ethan raised his weapon and fired. A blue beam struck the attacker in the chest, sending it flying back into a rock wall. The second one flanked right, but Cale appeared from the shadows, hand glowing, and slammed a psychic wave into the enemy, tossing it like a leaf in the wind. But the third one, larger, smarter, ran straight toward Nova. She didn't move. Ethan shouted, but before he could reach her, she lifted her hand. Her eyes flashed silver, and time seemed to bend. The hunter froze mid-run, like caught in invisible glass. Then his armor split down the middle, and he collapsed, unconscious. Nova lowered her hand. Cale gasped. She stopped time. Only for him. Nova looked down at her fingers. Didn't hurt. Only stop the hate. But the sky rumbled again. Another ship was coming. This one bigger. The mothership. Ethan grabbed Nova. "We have to go." Cale pointed toward the inner chamber of the sanctuary. There is one final choice to make. They ran. Inside the sanctuary's heart was a strange platform, glowing blue symbols spinning in the air. The source flame. It pulsed like a star, floating above a pool of light. Nova stepped forward. Cale warned, "If she enters, the flame will bond with her forever. She will rise, but lose her childhood. The galaxy will gain a protector, but she will lose her years." Ethan turned to Nova. "You don't have to do this. I'll fight them. We'll run again." Nova looked up at him, eyes soft. "I'm tired of running," she whispered. "They took everything. I won't let them take you." She turned toward the platform. Ethan grabbed her arm. "If you go in there, will you remember me?" She smiled faintly. "I'll remember your warmth, always." And she stepped into the flame. The entire sanctuary trembled. Light poured from the chamber, rising to the ceiling like a beacon. Outside, the mothership stopped in midair. Alarms ringing. Nova floated above the platform, now her hair silver fire, her skin pulsing with stars. Symbols spun across her arms, chest, and forehead. Her voice rang like music, echoing across the valley. "I am Nova, last of the Flameborn, daughter of stars, protector of hope." She lifted her hands. The sky responded. The mothership began to shake, its engines glitching. Power failed across the entire fleet. The hunters screamed in pain, dropping their weapons. Light poured from Nova's body into the sky, cleansing, warm, powerful. And then silence. The ships were gone. Vanished. Only soft snowfall returned, as if the sky had forgiven the ground. Ethan stood frozen. He looked up at the platform. Nova floated down slowly. But something had changed. She was older. Not by much, but her voice was steadier, her posture more balanced. Her eyes deeper. He stepped forward. "Nova?" She smiled. "Still me." Ethan fell to one knee, arms open. She ran into them. Cale watched in silence, a peaceful smile on his face. The galaxy was saved today, not by an army, but by one human, and one child who chose light. That evening, the stars shone brighter than ever. Ethan sat on the mountainside with Nova beside him. Watching the sky, she leaned on his shoulder and said, "We still build swing?" He laughed. "Yeah, we still build the swing." And for the first time in a long time, across galaxies and broken skies, there was peace. The end.